On a rainy and windy afternoon last November at Seattle Center, I walked into a darkened studio and saw a film crew huddled around a miniature set, manipulating action figures representing software developers and a monster representing AI slop. This is different, I thought to myself. They were creating a stop-motion animation video to promote Kiro, an AI-powered software development tool from Amazon Web Services. And when I heard that this film crew was in fact using AI to make video in ways that wouldn't have been possible in the past, or at least would have taken far more time using traditional techniques, I knew I had to sit down and talk with them. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. My colleague John Cook is traveling this week, so I took the opportunity to step away from the news for a deep dive into the world of AI and video production. What's working, what's not, and what's left for human creativity and intuition. As you'll hear, I had so many questions and found it so fascinating that this show is a little longer than usual, but it contains tons of insights into the broader development of AI and its application to the creative process. And I know many of you will find it valuable too. Plus, stick around to the end for what I think might be my favorite installment yet of the GeekWire Trivia Challenge. All that's coming up this week on the GeekWire podcast. Brice Budke and Zeek Earl run two Seattle video and creative production studios, Shep, which does narrative commercials and customer stories for companies like Amazon and Microsoft and many others, and Packrat, which specializes in miniature worlds and handmade sets and retro creative projects that have proven extremely popular online. In fact, some of you might know the work of Packrat from the amazing, I gotta say, it's truly amazing, you guys, 2025 Seattle Seahawks schedule release video, which is a hilarious spoof of classic television action figure commercials. Brice runs the business side as president, and Zeek is the creative lead as executive creative director. Hey, it's great to have you both on the show.
Really happy to be here.
Likewise.
So after meeting you two at the set for a stop-motion video shoot for Amazon's Kiro developer tools last year, I got interested in your work. And so for people who don't know your work, way before you got into the commercial world, you made a film called Prospect. And this was an indie sci-fi film that premiered at South by Southwest in 2018, starring Pedro Pascal and Sophie Thatcher. And you built the props and the costumes by hand in a warehouse here in Fremont?
Yeah, an old boat building warehouse down on Stoneway.
And you shot it out on the Olympic Peninsula?
Yes.
That's great. So I wanted to have you in here for a conversation about your work, but also about how AI is changing what you do and how you're thinking about the future. So are you guys ready for this?
Let's do it.
Very ready.
Okay, good.
I should say I'm Zeek.
And I am Brice.
There we go. We got some audio tags.
This is how you know you're in the room with media production people. So tell me the story of how you went from making an indie sci-fi movie out, in the Hoh rainforest to doing commercial videos and smart and quirky and charming social media for the likes of Amazon and Microsoft.
Well, the commercials actually came first.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It was both, my bad and good luck that I graduated in recession around 2008, and I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get an unpaid internship. And so I started my own company because no one would give me any work. And in that moment in time, there was lots of ad contests online where just anyone could compete for prize money. And that's how we started a commercial production company. And Brice got a job at Microsoft and actually became one of the few. Became one of my first clients and allowed me to do some very actually strange things for Microsoft back in the day. There's a very I don't know. I feel like back in that era, just fresh out of college, my goal with commercials is to see what I could get away with. And Brice let me do some pretty bizarre stuff for the Microsoft stores. There's a very iconic shot of a Dell tablet rotating out of a field of Christmas Jell-O platters that we did practically and did quite well online. But it was after several years of we always had aspirations to make a movie, and it was doing the commercials that kind of actually gave us the training and our own production company was the production company of our much larger feature film, and it formed out of just seeing what work we could get around town here in Seattle.
So that's Zeke, and as he said, he's the creative director. So you got the creative on that side. So now, Brice, you're more on the business side.
Yes. So I was one of the lucky few who got a job during the recession. It was actually with a local consulting company, Loft 9, and I was staffed in at Microsoft, and eventually found my way in running a social media team for Microsoft stores. And that's where I pulled in Zeke and Chris and the Shep team, and it was great. On the side, as I was working with them, I was also helping with the short film. And it was at the end of the short film and these projects where I was like, man, the best part of my job is doing all this video work. We got in the point in the short film where we had done really well online after South by Southwest, and we were pitching the feature, and it was like, man, I really have to decide, like, am I going to work in my 9 to 5 getting this movie made? Because I can't do it in my 5 to 9 anymore. And it was like, you know what? I've had a good run. I think I'm probably get a job again. Let's just see if we can get a movie made and see how it goes from there. And it worked. But I had going back to the commercial side of it, I joke often that to be kind of a truly independent filmmaker doing your own stories and doing the things you want to do, you have to be independently wealthy, right? Like ideally you have a trust fund so that you can kind of gap all of this time in order to get your projects made. We are not independently wealthy, nor have trust funds. So the commercial production has allowed us to have that flexibility where it is, if we had to go make our ends meet in the film world, we'd have to be in LA and we'd have to be kind of part of that machine. A lot of people have made great careers that way, but it just isn't what we wanted to do. So the commercials allow us to make stuff we want to make on our own timelines and kind of hold out for the projects we want while still being able to pay our bills and all of that.
So obviously you get revenue fulfillment out of the commercial work,
yes,
by definition. Do you get creative fulfillment out of it,
Oh,
Zeke?
yeah. Commercials are so much fun. It's like, I view it as like someone is giving me money to go play often with new toys and try things out. I mean, I think it's the kind of work that I do is really trying to give brands personality, to convey messaging in interesting ways. It never is stagnant. And it's really great to collaborate with someone, help them get their message across in a very creative way. And at the same time, it's like when I make something for myself, when I make a film, that very much has my name on it. And it's actually very stressful. And it's very this is my oeuvre, where it's just going and making ads is just a party. It's like everyone gets to make something cool together.
I have to talk about the Seahawks campaign. Can you tell the story of this? And then I've got some questions for you. And we will get to AI. I promise all the GeekWire listeners out there, but this is so good. Go ahead.
So you're referring to the Seahawks schedule release video last year, which if you don't follow football in the NFL, I feel like it does take a little bit of explanation that it has arisen between all the NFL teams that during the offseason, there's this actually very loaded competition where all the teams have to release an intention-getting video that simply lays out their schedule for the season, but these videos have absolutely nothing to do with the absolute schedule. It's like everyone is essentially trying to make the funniest, most surprising, weirdest viral video, and then all the sports outlets rank them, and so you literally have winners.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, you have winners and losers, and it's the difference between working for the Seahawks and Microsoft is when you work for sports people, they are competitive. They want to win, but this is not their native format. So the Seahawks reached out to me for some creative kind of consulting, and it eventually turned into a full production under our company Pack Rat. And the idea we pitched. We pitched 15 ideas that were all incredibly different. And the one that stuck, that just resonated, was the idea of making an action figure commercial, making Seahawks players past and present into action figures, and then making ridiculous villains out of all the opposing players.
So good.
And then in that just fast pace, in your face, over the top 90s style, putting together, these ridiculous toys. And then then kind of the next layer is we got some of the players to actually play with them, and it took on this whole kind of joy. What we really discovered is that it doesn't matter what age you are, like people love playing with toys. If they are given permission, if you put an action figure in somebody's hand, like, oh man, it just brings them joy. And I think that energy actually is what really made us, succeed, which was very interesting because it was in a moment that a lot of like AI content, like early kind of bad AI content was coming out. And we made this very practical, like, hey, we made physical toys video, and it was shockingly successful, like way beyond my expectations. We won a gold Clio for this action figure video, which is nuts. This is like, the Oscars of advertising that you see in Mad Men for what was a relatively low budget, incredibly goofy video for the Seahawks that very much resonated.
The thing, and I will link to that video, and I'll insert some audio actually, with your permission, if that's okay. Fair use, 10 seconds of audio into this podcast, just so people can get a flavor for it.
Panthers, Colts, Texans, Commanders, Steelers, and the mighty Tennessee Titans. But they're no match for Bam Bam Cam's Bam Bam Van. And who's riding along? It's Marshawn. Get off me, he says. Just a baby stiff arm. Oh, that's going to get him a fine. Fine money not included. The Hawks can get
that, to me, was in part a demonstration of just how much human knowledge and context and background plays into a high-quality product. There is no way that an AI, at least as I've experienced it, could have gotten all of those inside jokes, could have come up with all of those things. The Marshawn flip into the end zone, getting the fine. People will know what we're talking about. That is just nothing that an AI would have come up with. And so it seems to me that there's always going to be a reason to have a human in the loop, as it were, on that kind of creative process. Am I thinking about things the right way?
My viewpoint in AI has been shifting as AI has been shifting. But initially I was like, I don't know that we're going to have a production company, right? Like if you can just prompt what you need, the future was so open. It was like, man, where are we going to land? As it's come around, I see what's happening in film, what's happening in the art space, graphic design is very being led by what's happening in the code world, where it's like, I mess around with Claude Code, with Codex, and I try to like make a little program, and I know nothing about code, and they're fine. They like suit me for a moment, but they're usually buggy and they're usually bad.
Little apps that you might make.
Little apps that I make. No one should see these apps or use them, right? I have buddies who are coders, and they beautiful things. They're like essentially like production ready applications in days. And it's a bit of like that human's really important, because what matters is the taste and your perspective and all the years of experience you have to guide the tool. And it's a spot where like Zeek's way better at using a lot of the like the AI video tools, where I'll try to like bash them together. I'm like, even working so close to it, like I don't intuitively understand how to direct the tool to get like the right focal length and the right camera movements and all of this industry knowledge that's been trained on. Like you still need that person with taste and decision making more than just like, yeah, show me a commercial and see what I get back.
When we started out, so like, just as fresh out of college, it's like, I was always trying to kind of push crazy ideas, but the business model for the type of companies we were trying to run in Seattle would be what you would call a video production company. And the idea of a video production company, I do believe, is dying, because really all that really meant to was kind of like access to expensive cameras and people who know how to use them. And that really is not something the world needs much of anymore. And we have seen, our companies shift, and we have been pushing this aggressively, that we're no longer a video production company. We're essentially idea companies. And that's why kind of we've split into two brands. We have Shep, that is focused on helping these big tech companies communicate really complex projects. We might be doing that with a video production camera. We might be doing that with AI. It doesn't matter. It's our ability to help them communicate that's valuable. And then similarly with Packrat is my play space for crazy ideas.
Yes.
And again, like, I'm wanting to get into actually some of the ideas I'm going to be pitching to Seahawks next week. I can't, but like they are all over the place, and they are agnostic of, the actual tools. That, what I'm trying to bring is a fun perspective that breaks through the noise of social media. And I think that's the thing. It's like AI can prompt infinite videos, but to create something that someone actually wants to watch, at this point absolutely takes human direction.
Let's take a break here. And when we come back, I want to talk about some of the nitty gritty, like the actual tools you're using. So we'll do that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop. I should mention to our loyal GeekWire podcast listeners that even though my colleague John Cook is not here this week, he's out of town. Yes, we do have GeekWire Trivia on this episode. Stick around to the final segment. I'm going to try and stump Brice and Zeek.
I'm really nervous about this.
I love trivia, and
I'm
I can't
prepared to
go.
lose any credibility that I will have established with this interview.
I'm talking this week with Brice Budke
This is me.
and Zeke Earl. Mm-hmm. They are respectively the president and creative lead of the video and creative production studios Shep and Packrat. Video and creative production studios, is that a appropriate phrase? What do you say?
We've been calling them video agencies,
Video
which is a
agencies.
term we made up, but as
I
Zeke
call
was talking...
Packrat a creative studio a lot.
All right, fair enough. All right.
Okay.
Because we've started doing physical installations.
That's
too.
true. That's true.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So let's do a bit of an inventory here. It is March 6th as we're recording this for the record. So timestamp. I feel like I have to say that whenever I'm discussing AI with somebody
word.
because it could be different on March 7th. Okay.
boy.
How are you using AI in your jobs?
This week?
This week, can you be specific about the tools you're using for video production? And then I'm also interested, Brice, on the business side, like how you're using it, because I think that'll relate to a lot of people in the audience. But Zeke, let's start with you since we're talking about video.
Oh, man, this is such a complicated question to answer because I literally every week am using 1 to 2 new tools. And, part of it, this is probably cuttable, but they're all subscription model based. And it's like, it's so easy to lose track of your subscriptions that it's like, I cut the subscription the minute I am even pausing using the tool because it's like, and I have so many going. So, all right, let me try to collect my head here a little bit.
You could just do free trials, though, right? 7-day free trial.
Not the way we use it. We need the highest pro version, the most credits. The doing any AI video stuff is absolutely a numbers game. And to get one usable shot in a final piece, you might, need 1,000 generations. That's one of the things is that it's actually, it will change, but right now there's not even necessarily a cost savings to AI because it takes so much time, human operator time, to get usable clips out of these models. Now, we are used to seeing such incredible show reels and just single images. But when you actually are working for a client, you need to string together a sequence. You need things that feel internally coherent. And that's where avoiding little bits of slop, either you just need to keep cranking the lever and turning them out, or you have to be giving that footage to a VFX compositor who then is actually using all these old school tools to kind of clean them up. Now, what I am saying right now absolutely will be outdated next week, 100%. So back to the specific tools. We've used Runway, which is a Seattle-based company, for a very long time, and they still have one of the best models. And what I really like about them is they are trying to think about AI from a filmmaker's perspective, and they have a lot of tools that are built for a filmmaker, in mind. Where, say, if you were using VO directly with Gemini or something, it's going to be all sort of kind of prompt-based, and it's going to be a lot more tedious. The number one tool that myself and anyone seriously working with AI is using right now is Google Nano Banana. Nano Banana is, for someone in my position, the major breakthrough. Whenever they updated the model, it was kind of in the fall or December, of last year. That was a huge turning point. Because what Nano Banana can do that nothing could do previously was consistency. You could previously get some very impressive things out of AI, but you were just engaging with the chaos machine. And somewhere in that chaos, you would find something good.
So one generation of the video, it might be this way, another it might be another way. There was no continuity between them.
And when you're working with video, you're working with still images. You perfect the still first, and then you feed the still to the video engine. And so, because Nano Banana is not, VO is Google's video engine, but Nano Banana is the still image engine.
Right.
And you are perfecting it in Nano Banana first, and Nano Banana completely changed the way I was working with AI. Where previously it was just just get as many generations as I can, where now I actually will spend 10, 15 minutes writing a Nano Banana prompt that might be 50 lines long because it can handle that level of specificity. And I'm also feeding it 20 reference images and referencing them specifically. And it is the first time I have felt like an AI is giving me control. And I think that's something that I'll be talking about a lot when I'm talking about AI tools, is that from a professional standpoint, what AI still has lacked and is lacking less and less, but still lacks, is control. That you are just working around what you get. Even when I see like major brands putting out AI ads, I can see the gymnastics they are doing to make it work, because it's so hard to get the finesse that you can get with a camera on set. And Nano Banana has, again, it's a absolutely mind-blowing tool, but one even thing that I think helps illustrates its limitations is it's very bad at making small changes. It's really good at making drastic changes. But it's like, I have never successfully gotten like, hey, could you lower the camera, 6 inches? Could you change the angle 15 degrees? Can't do that at all. I've tried so many different ways, hours of time trying to get this level of finesse. But if I would make it snow, great, then it'll cover my frame with snow. That same logic applies to so many different AI tools that I'm working with right now. And I think it's like you are starting to see companies now really trying to solve that problem specifically.
I can see why it would be more expensive to do AI than human-generated content. But are you saying with Nano Banana that you're effectively like AI storyboarding before you do video? Is that
that is the biggest change across everything, because we aren't actually we're absolutely making generative AI videos for our clients, but almost now for all videos we are storyboarding with AI, and it is from a typical traditional production perspective a absolutely mind-blowing tool. And this is where I don't want to totally veer the conversation right now, but there is kind of this deep divide between where AI can assist and superpower traditional production and where it is like actively seeking to sort of replace traditional production. And it is one of the things that is so sort of controversial in our industry right now, because like Ben Affleck yesterday just sold a AI company to Netflix, and it's very mysterious what this company is able to do. There's not a lot of information out about it right now, but people like me are very, very interested, because he is trying to make AI tools where you actually go do a whole shoot, feed your footage into the tool, and then get this whole host of, additional additive services on top of it, versus starting from like a totally generative space. So we're in this funny world now where it's like you're having to actively keep track of sort of both directions this is going. But from the perspective of like, I have been making, traditional things, like traditional production with cameras for like 20 years, the fact that I can AI storyboard now with like lighting conditions is incredible. We take we just did a big shoot for Microsoft that had locations around Seattle. We went and took photography of the locations, fed them into the model, made storyboards like in, with different lighting conditions, which helped us think through the actual practical production to a level that is unheard of. And to me, it's like, that's what I'm very excited about, like with AI. And I feel like I'm being super powered, where I think most of the conversation right now is about generative AI and slop and like, from that side of things.
And I should say that even that storyboarding approach is something you really couldn't have done in the more traditional world, because traditional storyboards are more like sketch drawings, or maybe you're getting a little more detailed, but being able to pull in actual location and then being able to adjust pretty rapidly how the shot looks would be, if not impossible, just really expensive and wouldn't be worth the time cost to do it. So the spot of like, a lot of these times we would have a rudimentary storyboard for all these projects, but we're now having this really specific style of storyboard that's influenced production even more than paying some,
There's a funny problem that's come out of this, though, is that when you show these to clients, they don't know, because they're looking at something photorealistic. So then they start delivering you like notes on these storyboards as if it's like the final video. And you're like, no, this is just a storyboard. It'll be different. Like, we can do this. But
when the draft is too good.
Yeah. And I think this is a short term, because pretty soon, this is going to be the norm. Everyone's going to be used to it. But yeah.
So in that example, is the end product still going to be shot with a a actual
Oh,
digital
yeah, we
camera?
shot this last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was our biggest camera. It was a 30-person crew.
Mm-hmm.
This was a massive shoot.
So how close were you actually able to come to the ideal that the AI presented you?
Oh,
and
we
the
beat
client?
the AI.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because
Oh,
we have
okay.
I have more control still on set than I do with AI, and
It's more control,
Yeah.
but it's also just you're dealing with the real world. So there was a shot under the Aurora Bridge, and we shot it at 3 or 4 different times a day, and there was a bunch of different lighting, and there's a little bit of just there were boats going, but there's just the real world you can capture that you probably could get in AI, but you just get some inspiration. You're like, oh, if we frame the shot like this, it's going to be pretty with the light and everything going through. And it's there's a bit of inspiration that also comes other than just trying to mastermind it in AI from the upfront.
So, Brice, I want to get your inventory of AI. But first, I'm curious what this means on the business side as you're thinking about these tools, and also on the revenue side as you're thinking about production capacity and team size. Can you sort of give us your current state of the union as it relates to those kinds of fundamental questions?
The biggest thing on the revenue and cost side is the divide between the hype and the reality of the product, right? So we've had a few projects canceled or delayed long enough that they were functionally canceled because some higher up above our client was pushing them to try to do that project with AI. Right, so this idea of well, just use AI and do it for cheaper than going with the production company. And there's a bit of just well, as we've just discussed for a long time, that's really hard. And it's particularly hard, we are working with marketers, with brand people. They don't know film. They know how to direct someone like me to then go get a film, but they don't know how to go in and prompt, nor do they have time. These people are slammed. They don't have 3 hours
AI
to go.
is incredibly time consuming.
Oh, and you're at a slot machine. It's fun, but it's
Did you say slot machine or slot machine? Maybe both.
Yeah. But it's no, you're pulling that lever, and it's it's a different feeling where you're just it's fun in the way slot machines are fun.
Can
It's
I
not
give
fun
a very
in
specific
flow.
example? Because I'm thinking about your audience, Todd,
Yes.
and just some of the things where people see such impressive things with AI, and then they probably hear us talk, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" So, for example, Seed Dance, the model that came out by the TikTok last week was producing photorealistic Marvel scenes and things of Tom Cruise. What you have to understand is it can do that because Marvel movies exist. So it can copy and paste Marvel, which, by the way, ain't mind-blowing. So impressive. However, so here's a good example. I was trying to make this funny video. I actually won this award, this big award for the Seahawks video. I couldn't go to the awards show. It just didn't work out. And so I wanted to make an AI video of myself attending the awards show and make it really funny. And it was this goofy thing. But when it put me on the red carpet, it kept blending me with Bryan Cranston. And I spent hours trying to extract the Bryan Cranston out of me and putting the me back in. But that's the thing, is these models are, hard trained on this stuff. And that is just one of 500 funny little problems you will encounter trying to make photorealistic AI. And it's why some of the much, much more successful filmmaking methods are usually kind of anime based or animation based, because you actually can skirt around these problems a lot more easily. But there are so many things that where, yes, it works mind-blowingly in this specific thing that you scrolled through on your social media app, but when you actually try to achieve a vision that your client has, try to get a message across, that you have to work around all these limitations. And again, let's talk in 2 weeks, and they'll probably have solved half of it.
Who knows? The other thing here, to go with what Zeke was just saying, is that Tom Cruise video, someone just prompted it. They didn't really care what they got, right? Which is different than when we are being paid to try to market something, get something out there. It's I care a lot about it. I can make you something impressive with AI, but it's not the impressive you want or need for this moment. And that's a bit different here, where it is being able to produce something impressive versus something that you're trying to say. And you see this a lot in the bigger AI as a genre video. You'll see Kalshi does a lot of these, and you can tell that from the very beginning that concept was built around AI limitations, and there's not a lot of character consistency. It's really fantastical. There's all these things that can this is what AI does well, right? But when our client is being asked by their skip level to use AI, it's like, well, AI doesn't know how to do like a product announce video on some product where the code isn't locked, right? Like it fundamentally doesn't exist. So they need a company like us to come in and animate the UI because it doesn't exist, and really carefully make sure that
the UI can't be wrong.
And the UI can't be wrong. That's the other one, because legally, it cannot be wrong. So it's like you can't AI that. And so I think there's, going back to the beginning of this question, is there's this discrepancy between well, just AI do it, it's cheap. And it's well, we want to do it AI on purpose. It's like, okay, well, that's going to have a team of just post people sitting pressing the go button for a week that may be cheaper than a shoot, but it's not that much cheaper.
And we can do, there are definitely absolutely ways that AI, can save money.
Oh, and we
should talk about Kiro,
Right.
Yes, we should.
And but that's really purpose built around it. And so from our side, it's I think things will level out where it's yes, for 75 grand, I can probably do more than I could with AI than we could before, if we build it around specific limitations, and we can have we can do all of these new things we couldn't do before, or we could do what we did before. But it's really what are you trying to get more than just save money?
What you're saying really resonates with me from my own process of doing reporting, because so many people in the industry focus on output, and it's often something that you hear from people who haven't really used the tools a lot. And it's all about, well, you're just going to put in a sentence and the AI is going to give you a story. And for me, it's no, it's about the process. It's about the things that you're doing along the way to make yourself as a person more efficient and more effective. And that's what you're talking about. And the output's going to get better and better and better. However, to me, you're not going to have the human agency in the middle of that output if you're just putting in a sentence and pressing a button.
I mean, this is a little non sequitur on where we're talking here, but on my personal, on my side, I try to use a lot of AI tools, partly on business development wise, of we work with a lot of AI companies and or their competitors. And so there's a bit of anytime I get my hands on a new tool, I will use it to just see what happens, right? Just how does this work? I will probably have to push something like this soon. This week I've been using a lot of Claude Cowork because it finally got released to Windows last month.
Yes.
And so testing that out. But one of the things I've found on both my personal side and just my spot in the company is I've been trying to do a lot more writing, partly because of how much as AI is trying to get my thoughts distilled down.
Yeah.
And writing is a really good way to force me to think through it. But I'm Zeek and Chris, we should mention, there's another creative director, Chris, who sits over Shep, who's not here today. But Zeek and Chris are they were creative writing majors in college. I studied econ, right? I know how to write, but it's not in my bones. And so my process ends up being I will go walk with granola, and I will talk out what I want to say. I will take those notes. I will throw it into Claude or whatever one I'm trying that week. I will have it give me an outline summary. I will then write against it, and then I'll have it check that edit. And it's a spot of 2 years ago, it's every step of that would have been I don't have time for I have a job that I have to do on top of it. I will just kind of rip something together. And it's allowing me to do something that I don't really have time for nor the background on, but it can help me in these really key steps to speed me up and get my output. But the goal for me isn't to here's an idea, kick out writing, as you were saying. It's no, the whole thing is I need to struggle with this a couple times, while I'm walking and talking, when I'm turning an outline to writing, to make me think, so that I have some point of view that I can point back on. And I think that, to me, is really the key, going all the way back of do you need a human in the loop? It's yes, because ultimately somebody has to have a point of view and taste and a perspective to put in. And if you take that out, it's you're just up for the slot machine random chance generator. And it's that's inherently less interesting and inherently less relatable to anyone experiencing it or interacting with it.
We met originally last fall at Seattle Center. I was doing a story about Kiro, the spec-driven AI development environment, and they invited me to a video shoot, a commercial shoot, where Julia White, the CMO of Amazon Web Services, was going to be. And I was well, sure, I'd like to talk to Julia. And that could be a good photo, but what the heck? I had no idea what they were talking about. So what were you doing there at that video shoot? And tell me how you were using AI as part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kiro is kind of an unusual product for AWS because they've given it its own brand and personality, which is super fun. They've given Kiro a character, a mascot, who's a little ghost. And we have a long relationship with AWS, and we just started, shooting around crazy ideas on what are some interesting ways we can, again, break through the noise and bring awareness to Kiro and its distinctiveness. And so we pitched building a little world around Kiro the ghost, like adding characters to this world, adding little narratives that can be, cut down into just like kind of these fun, very kind of social driven videos. Now, at the core of what Kiro, the, agentic coding tool, like the product is to help you avoid slop in your code. And so we were faced with this interesting situation where this is an AI tool. It would be very organic to use AI in the making of the video, but at the same time, the final result can't have any slop because that is the very thing that Kiro is helping you avoid. So we spent a lot of time thinking about this and digging into the new tools, and where we landed is in a place that I'm really excited about, and I think is a really good example of how AI tools can superpower creative, allow us to do things we couldn't do before, and at the same time, save money. This is the utopian view of AI. And what we did is we practically, physically built this little world. We built figurines. At the center of one of the narratives is a slop monster who's this, big gooey guy with circuits and wires sticking out of him. And then we have all these little developer action figures sitting at their miniaturized desks that are full of detail. And the slop monster comes in and just starts destroying everything. And Kiro jumps in and saves the day. Now, the production method we used was doing all this production design practically, which is very appealing. You see these miniature objects, you can tell they're handmade. And normally we would need sort of weeks of stop motion animation to bring them to life. But what we did was we were only needing to shoot certain frames. Start and end frame animation is a type of AI animation. And so we were feeding our frames into the engine and getting AI to essentially fill in the gaps, which allowed us to move a lot faster and even do things that you can't really do very well in conventional stop motion animation. And so, we still, had our team of lighting people and camera people on set, but we were able to produce 3 or 4 times the amount of content that we would normally, because it just sped up the whole process. But you look at these videos and it has that same fidelity that real stop motion, often does. And it's I can't say they're 100% slop free. I'm sure people will go in there and start nitpicking the pixels and find slight errors, but they look really good. And that's very exciting.
And I would say the other thing about this is in traditional stop motion and any animation, you want to have your plan dialed really tightly up front because you have to do so much production and then you have to do the cleanup and everything afterwards. The very interesting part of this isn't just that it saved time on all of that. It's that Zeek and the team could be really improvisational on set and be okay, well, let's set this here, start frame, end frame, and test out a few different approaches. And then we even had an editor off next to us on set working through and being well, I can grab start frame, end frame, and just test it out. It's not going to be what ended up in the final product because you need to refine. But it's you get an idea of how it's coming together. So it was this weird mix of it was stop motion with more of a live, a more live action improvisational where you don't have to have it so baked on the upfront, which is a whole new approach that is just otherwise kind of unable to be tapped without these tools.
You were live prototyping the end product
Yeah.
In many ways.
It feels, I'm not a coder. None of us are coders, but I imagine it feels how coders who are using Lovable or any of these live demo prototyping apps are, where they're I can just make code and try it right now versus having to go through the waterfall process and do that whole thing. It's it's that version, but for film where you're you can just test a little bit more because it's cheap and fast.
I've been talking with the folks at Amazon Web Services, and if everything goes to plan, I believe we might be doing something of a premiere of this video in the post that accompanies this podcast. And so if you're listening to this, go and look for the post related to this on GeekWire, and you can see exactly what we're talking about, the result of this AI generated, but also human handcrafted stop motion animation. And so what I was seeing there with you all in the studio was you were shooting stills. You were
Yes.
shooting stills that then become videos because of AI.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, my feeling on this one is it's one of these, like, where's your frame of reference, right? You drop us back, I don't know, I'm going to pick the wrong, 70 years ago. And it's like film was literal film strips, and you cut it by cutting it and then putting it together, right? It had this very, like, tactile element. And then you go into more like linear editing systems where it's digital, right? Or even before that, where you're like editing digitally, even if it's really on film, and then you have digital film. All of these felt a little bit of like, well, that's not what the true essence of this is, right? Where it's like, well, back when we started in 2008, it's like we shot on DSLRs, and that was our big advantage because none of the other agencies or production companies were, because they were working off of more, large film cameras, or big digital cameras. And it allowed us to be like, well, we can run with like 3 people because like this thing has crazy light sensitivity and is like really small. It feels to me like we're in a similar one of those, just with larger societal ramifications other than DSLR, where it's like, it's still a tool and we're still employing a lot of the same people and approaches. It's like, yes, we are going from still image to the video part being in AI, but all of this is still trying to give Zeek and his team control over that whole process and as much creativity as possible. It's now just, we can do that. But if the next time we concept something, like let's say for Seahawks, like the Seahawks bot may have no AI. It may be all practical. Like maybe we do real stop motion because it's like, oh no, this is actually better for this moment. It's just one more approach we can pull, and it levels the cost playing field across a portfolio of approaches.
Doing the Kiro project was the first time I felt in control of AI. Kiro is a brand. It has a character. I can't just like have an AI do an approximation of that character and then in every frame it feel like a little differently. I achieved the same fidelity that I would get on a typical film set, but I was able to do more. I was able to be more creative. I was able to move faster. I mean, that's very empowering. Like that felt great. And we are eagerly just kind of seeing where else this, can take us. And it's a very exploratory moment. But what's very clear to me is that, I know I'm obviously not the only one with access to this technology. And I think it will have a very democratizing effect across the industry. And again, the most important thing will be the idea. It's like you will see there's now just a lower barrier to achieving a vision, you have in your head.
Can you use this example to talk a little bit more about what you were talking about earlier about the role of human experience and skill in this kind of situation? Could you, based on your experience and vision, create something in this case that was different and better than the person whose skip level told them to put a prompt in?
Oh yeah, I mean, in this case, it's like we're still employing the entire vocabulary of cinematography, and not to mention the entire process of art direction and character, creation. I mean, I think what makes the spot ultimately appealing is that it does not feel generic. I mean, what does it mean when we say something's handmade? Like, at the end of the day, it means that one person made a lot of decisions that give something distinctiveness. And that's what you feel, I think, hopefully, not that when you watch the Kiro spots versus when you are working purely generative in AI, it is always pulling you towards the middle. It is always pulling you towards things that are derivative. And people have absolutely been able to pull some very original things out of AI, but it's almost kind of like despite of it. And because they've maybe stumbled onto something versus like, I had a vision for Kiro and I was able to execute it. And often we got some things in the first generation, like in the engine. It's like start frame, end frame. nailed it, moving on. Or maybe sometimes it took 9 or 10, where when you're working in the purely generative space, we are sometimes working in the hundreds of generations before you get something that you may actually never be satisfied. There's a whole psychology that is really crazy about generative AI because it's an infinite tool. As a creative person, when you're working with an infinite tool, there's always the possibility that something better could come.
Oh.
And it is psychologically like destructive. Like you, at the end of a day of doing AI, like you can just feel physically terrible because you will have never actually reached a level of satisfaction with your work. I'm sorry, that just popped out of nowhere. But
that resonates with me in a lot of different ways. There is so much more you can do in general, and so you end up doing so much more. And it's like, yes, you're slicing that final 1% infinitely. Yeah. Right? And you're getting to 99.99998. Let's get it to 99999.
Yeah.
Yes, right?
I'm still waiting for the AI agent that is just made to help you cope with working with AI agents. Yeah.
Stand up, step away.
Right.
I've got a question for you on the business side. If a client such as AWS knows that you're going to be using AI, do they expect you to reduce your rates? How does that work out on the cost side?
We really haven't been pushed to like reduce rates necessarily, but often what happens is they're like, it's when we have to back into a number where they're like, I only have X amount of money. What can you do? And it's like, well, actually with AI, we can do this thing that is maybe cooler than what we otherwise could do with this money. So it tends to be there. It actually isn't always cheaper, but if we approach it in this novel way, I can get you more like bang for the buck. But every once in a while, like, if there was a project where it's just like, yeah, we can just kind of bash that out in a couple days, like I can give it to you pretty cheap. It's just very rare the stars align, that it's like their ask is so caught up with what the AI tools can do, and it doesn't require a lot of other like producing or creative management or cleanup.
Okay, I have a big picture question for you all, but I want to do the trivia first.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
So we're going to do that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire, and we'll be right back with our GeekWire Trivia Challenge.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
This is GeekWire's Trivia Challenge.
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
All right, welcome back. Yes, it is time for the GeekWire Trivia Challenge. I'm here with Brice Budke and Zeek Earl of Shep and Packrat. We've been having a great conversation. I was thinking about this, you guys. One of the other claims to fame that you have is you've worked with the Acquired podcast.
Yes.
And you were, in fact, responsible for the set and the video of the 10th anniversary episode that they did with Michael Lewis in the original Google Garage?
That's true. Yeah, no, I am just a big Acquired fan. At some point, met Ben and we've become friends. And yeah, he reached out and was like, hey, we want to film in the Google Garage. We want to bring Michael Lewis. Do you guys want to film this for us? And I was like, we would love to do that. So yeah, we've done that and a few other projects with them. But yeah, they're great guys.
I didn't know that until recently when I saw your LinkedIn post, and I remember thinking, though, when I saw that episode, I'm a Acquired fan as well, that their production values were really stepped up, and now I know why. And I bring it up in part because this is a longer than normal GeekWire podcast, but I'm going to stick with it in the spirit of the fact that it was a great conversation. I loved it, and screw it. Everybody else out there is going to like it too, as far as I'm concerned. So, all right, we're going to keep going here with the Trivia Challenge. This relates to your work in part. And the thing about the GeekWire Trivia Challenge that I like is that it's multiple choice. So I'm not going to put you on the spot. It's something you get to pick. So here we go. You specialize in video production for clients including Amazon, Microsoft, and others. Microsoft has a rich history of goofy internal videos featuring Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates, parodies that were often shown at company meetings and trade shows. I wish I could capture the looks on your faces right now. What's going through your mind?
I can think of one.
Okay. Well, again, multiple choice. So here we go.
A little background. We've met Steve Ballmer a few times.
Yes?
Yes. He used to come for new store openings, which I was then working at as my role in stores. And I hired Zeke and Chris and team to come film for me. So every once in a while he'd show up and we got to be within his presence prior to him leaving the company.
So I imagine he brought a little bit of energy to those appearances and occasions.
It was very memorable. I'll put it like that.
Okay, so Microsoft had these videos over the years. Which of these was not a real Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer video shown at a Microsoft event? Which of these was not? And I will tell you, usually we have 4 options. I'm going to make it a little harder. We have 5 options. There's just so many options.
I'm counting on you, Brice.
I'm ready.
All right.
I want to say I love trivia, but I don't have 2 small children and never get to go to trivia. So we'll see how rusty I am.
Here we go. A Matrix spoof where Bill Gates played Morpheus and Steve Ballmer played Neo, mocking Linux. B, an Austin Powers parody with Gates as Austin and Ballmer as Dr. Evil. And again, 4 of these are going to be real. C, a Night at the Roxbury parody with the 2 of them doing the head-bopping dance. D, a Top Gun remake with Gates as Maverick and Ballmer as Goose promoting Flight Simulator. And E, a, quote, Crazy Steve late-night infomercial spoof with Ballmer doing a manic, Crazy Eddie-style pitch for Windows XP. All right, you two think it over. I'm going to repeat them just for the podcast audience. So one was the Matrix spoof. The other was Austin Powers. The next was Night at the Roxbury. The other was Top Gun for Flight Simulator. And then the last one was Crazy Steve pitching Windows XP.
I'm going to think out loud here. I'm pretty sure the Night at the Roxbury and Crazy Steve are ones I remember. I'd believe the Top Gun one. Right, that just feels like on point there. So I'm down between Austin Powers and Matrix.
My guess is Top Gun because I feel like I have no idea, by the way. My guess is Top Gun because it feels like the oddest product for the 2 of them to promote. It's like only if they were doing it for the purpose of doing a bit. I don't know. My
logic on this one is I think is the Matrix one. And this is more, I just think Todd threw that in there because we're sci-fi filmmakers and that they didn't do it. Also, why would they bash
I like
Linux?
that logic.
Yeah. We're going to go Matrix.
Okay. You don't want to go separate?
Oh, we'll go separate. Sure.
Okay.
Increase our chances.
There you go. So what's yours, Zeke?
I'll do Flight Simulator.
Okay. Zeke wins. In fact, I was so pleased that I came up with this one. I was so happy.
I am now going to go look up all these videos.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in fact, the Matrix, the Austin Powers, the Night at the Roxbury, and the Crazy Steve are all real videos. I think I've seen most of these. And, you know, this is kind of a lost art in terms of the spoof. It's much more common to see the kinds of amazing videos that you guys do that are more about product stuff at these conferences. The spoof videos, although I will say Werner Vogels, the Amazon CTO, he at reInvent every year would have more of a spoof video. He carried on this
That's
tradition.
so funny. One of the more weirder AI videos we've done is for him.
Oh, yeah. Really?
It was when the tools weren't quite as good, and it would have been much easier to produce this week than it was whenever we produced it.
My last big picture question for you, and feel free to ponder this for a moment, but as you look inside yourselves at this moment in human history, how's that for a wind up on a question? Do you feel a sense of loss and concern or optimism and new possibilities?
Okay.
Or a mix of both? Talk me through this.
I
Let me put you on the couch.
I have to find the concise version of this. Zeke and I are both sauna enthusiasts, and I hit Zeke with some big metaphysical thoughts last time we were getting. Last time we
in the sauna. Did you say in the sauna?
Yes,
that's a good place for conversations.
No more.
It's an AI free zone.
It is. No phones, no AI. No, a little bit of both, right? My general thinking on this is, for one, it's be never asked to live in interesting times or whatever, however that quote goes,
may you
right?
Be cursed to live in interesting times. Yes.
Things are changing so fast that it's really hard to predict where anything's going, right? So that is both I just wish it was more stable just for my own life and company planning, but it's also really fascinating, especially being a part of it, being inside and working hand in hand with a lot of these tech companies. It's really fascinating because you're man, things are changing so fast. It's interesting, right? It's fun to be there. I think a lot of it, what what gives like the doomer side of it is just like AI is going to do everything I can do. I'm going to be worthless. And it's like, no, it's going to do a lot of the more analytical, very like task oriented jobs probably better than I or a lot of people can. Right? Like I think this is just happening, right? Like I talk to people who code, like AI writes most of their code, right? That is a loss. I think the other side of it though that I feel like more hopeful and optimistic about is even for myself, as I look towards the future and I'm like, man, if it can do that analytical, very like busy work, like fill my schedule busy, like really pound through the numbers, like that style of work better. It's like, what is there for me to do? Or even like if I was a coder, if it's like, if I'm no longer putting in the code, like what is there for me to do? And so it's like, well, it's for me to have good ideas, have taste, and have like an interesting perspective, which in a lot of ways is like, that sounds like a better day-to-day if we can get there, where it's like I'm not hopefully going to be valued as much on how busy I am or even just like how much I'm working. It's a bit more on like true output, but that output being based on ideas and like your history. And like I was talking in the sauna more around like how intuition is like this big important thing now, because like AI does not have intuition, right? Like you have to develop your own intuition and your own taste. And even like I personally am trying to push my day where like Zeek has always been really careful on his schedule where he's like, I like to meet at 9 or 1 because if I meet at 10:30 or 11, I lose my whole morning, right? And I need hours for creative space and time. And I was always like, well, that's because he's a creative person doing creative things, which is true. And it's like, oh, now like I'm also trying to do this where I have multiple hour chunks of my day where I can get into flow and really think on something and really like noodle over it. Where before it's like, I'm just back-to-back meetings all day and just get stuff done. Like this is just how my life is. Like to me, it's like if AI can push me or allow me to have more space and be more me and idea generated versus just output focused, it's like, that sounds great. I hope it doesn't just like cataclysm everything in the process, but like I don't know, I'm a more inherently optimistic person.
All right, the other side of the sauna.
I mean, I'll try to put it two ways and hopefully concisely. I just like a couple days ago, I met with a high school senior who was wanting advice about the film industry, and I try to do this thing as much as I can, and boy, I had to prep for it this time because it's like I need to like figure out what I'm going to like tell this kid. And the best I could do was explain the state of the industry right now. Be like, all right, this is what's going on in Hollywood. This is what's going on with like Northwest production. This is how crews are changing. Let me tell you as much as I can. Now your job is to go figure out what the future is because I don't know. And I'm sorry. Like, you are going to be entering into an industry that would have been, unrecognizable to me at your age. And I think that's the truth. I think, every creative person I know has gone through some like 5 stages of grief with AI in different ways. And I'm pretty past that. I'm pretty past being threatened by it. I'm pretty past being like sad that things are changing. And I'm really trying to focus on what it can do to bring out visions that were previously impossible. And this is literally what I'm about to say is a whole nother podcast. And Todd, you've got to edit this down, is...
Acquired can do 4-hour podcasts. I don't think Zeke and I rambling can.
The film industry is struggling heavily right now because film is too expensive. Like films cost too much to make. And when films cost too much, they have to appeal to a broader audience to make sure they make money. And like my hope and dream is that changes in production allow for like more human creativity, more interesting, weird, niche like visions. And like that's what I hope to bring out, is bring more of the weirdness and interesting parts of my brain like out to the world, versus oftentimes when I in the past have been forced to make things more middling and generic.
Brice Budke and Zeke Earl are with the Video and Creative Production Studios.
Shep is a video agency that works with tech companies.
Yes.
Pacra is a creative studio that will bring any of your weird ideas to life.
This has been so great, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and have this extended conversation. I feel like I have insights not only into your world, but also things that I can apply to my own in terms of the concepts you're talking about. And that's really the best kind of discussion as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for this therapy session, Todd.
Curt Milton edited this episode. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We'll be back soon with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.